Hi guys, today we're going to tackle about the summary of all the chapters. Let's proceed. So in the chapter one, which is the exploring the network. So in this chapter, it introduced the platform networks upon which our social and business relationship increases depend. So the materials lay the groundwork for exploring the services technologies and issues encountered by the network professionals. So by the network professionals, so as they assigned, build and maintain the network, modern network. So the question is, can we imagine a world without an internet? So I think because in our generations where internet are everywhere and uh, all of us have internet and think can't live without internet. But I think it's possible for other people because there's our parent and other grandmother and grandfather who live so long without internet. So I think for them it's possible, but I think for our generations and for the other kids which live with the internet, I think they can. But for me, um, I I can. I think I can um, because I miss to interact with my friends or family personally. So I think communication is almost as important as our reliance on air, water, food, and shelter. Because other people can't live without communicating to other people because they want to interact with each other. And of course, in communications, because of the internet, it's easy for us to communicate to other people who live from afar or away from us. Like nowadays, we can use YouTube to watch other videos that we want to watch, and we don't need to pay for that. We just have to get in, we just use internet and Facebook where we communicate to each to other friends, family, and Wikipedia, online gaming, which is so relevant, Netflix, iTunes, other and other um, social media that we use. So the internet it changed the manner in which social, commercial, political, and personal interactions occur. So the immediate nature of communication over the internet encouraged the creation of global communities. So the global communities allow for social interaction that independent of local or time zone. So, from my other videos in the chapter one, so we tackled more on the forms of communication, which is the texting, social media, collaborating tools, which we used, and the blogs, wikis, podcasting, peer-to-peer or P2P file sharing, which which allow people to share files with each other without having a store and download them from the certain server. So we also tackled in chapter one um, the small home networks, small office home networks, the medium to large networks, worldwide networks, which is the size of the networks, and also the client to server, which is and um, the network infrastructure. So the three categories of network components, which is the devices, media, services, and of course the end devices, intermediary devices, the network media. So in the end devices, we have the laptops, telephone, computer, printer, and other things. And intermediary, we have the router, switch, firewall, the wireless router. So in the network media, we have the LAN, which is the local area network media, the WAN, which is the wide area network, and the wireless media. So, but in the end devices, so it is so yeah, the end devices it's provide an interface between the human and the network. And for the intermediary devices, it's provide connectivity and ensure the data flows across the network. And the network media it is the to provide connectivity and ensure data flows across the networks. So we have also the four basic characteristic the underlying the architectures need to address in order to meet the user's expectation, which is the fault tolerance, scalability, quality of service or the QoS, and the security. And also, there are several new networking media that affect organization and and consumers. So some of the top trends includes the BYOD or Bring Your Own Device, online collaboration, video communication, and cloud computing. Also, the most common external threat to network includes the viruses, worms, Trojan horses, the spyware, adware, zero attack, or also called zero R attacks, the hacker attack, denial of service attack, data interception in theft, and other threats to network. So as I say, chapter one, the networks and the internet have changed the way we communicate, learn, work, and even play. So network comes in all sizes, as I say, and network infrastructure platform that support network. So it provides the stable and reliable channel over which communication can occur. So it is made up of network components including end devices, intermediary devices, and network devices. So that's all tackled in chapter one. So this is the features of other social media. So now let's proceed to chapter two. Um, going to summarize all. So I'm going to recapture all. So the chapter two, which is the configure a network operating system. So I'll say it again. So the operating system, it is a system that enables a device hardware to function and provides an interface for user to interact. In so so every computer it requires an operating system to function. So including computer face network devices such as the switches, routers, and access points, and the firewall. So so we tackled in this chapter the operating system, which is the shell, kernel, hardware. So as so um going to explain again the shell. So it is the user interface that allows user to request a specific task from the computer. So this request can be made either through CLI or GUI interfaces. So in the kernel, in the kernel, it communicates between the hardware and the software of a computer. So and manage how hardware resources are used to meet software requirements. For the hardware, it's the physical part of a computer, including underlying electronics. We also tackle the several ways to access the CLI environments and configure the devices. So the most common methods are the console, SSH or the secure shell, and the telnet. So of course, the console it is a physical management force, the port that provides the out-of-the-band access to Cisco devices. Shell, it is a method of remotely establishing a secure CLI through virtual interface. And for the telnet, it's ensure method of remotely establishing a CLI through a virtual interface over a network. So we have also tackled the primary commands mode. So you have the user exec mode, the privilege exec mode. Also, the two common sub-configuration modes, including the line configuration mode and interface configuration mode. And also the general syntax of for a command. So the keyword and the argument. So the keyword is a specific parameter defined in the operating system, and the argument is not defined. And also the iOS has two forms of help available, which is the context sensitive help and the command syntax check. And also I think some of you familiar of the CLI hotkeys and shortcuts, which is the tab for completes a partial command name entry. The backspace erases the characters to the left of the cursor. Control D, Control K, the enter key, spacebar, and other hotkeys and shortcuts. And other host name that and other host name should so start with the letter, contains no spaces, end with letter or digits, and yeah. And also limiting data device access, which is securing administrative access, which is the secure privilege exec access with password, secure exec secure user exec access with password, and secure remote telnet with a password, and other taxes, which is encrypt all password and provide legal notifications. And also when choosing password, when use password that are more than 8 characters in length. So this chapter it introduced the Cisco iOS. So it detailed the various modes of the Cisco iOS and examine the basic command structure that is used to configure it, and it also walked through the initial setting of Cisco iOS switch device, including setting a name, limiting access to the devices, configuring banner messages, and saving the configuration. So for the third chapter, which is the network protocols and communications. So in this chapter, we'll learn about these models as we learn as standard that makes network works and how communication occur over a network. So and in this chapter, rather than developing unique and separate system for delivery of each services, the network industry is as a whole has adopted a developmental framework that allows designer to understand the current network platforms and maintain them. So in protocols, it must account the unidentified sender and receiver, common language and grammar, speed and timing of delivery, confirmation of or acknowledgement requirements, and yeah, that's that for. So the protocol must account for the that requirements, that following requirements. We also tackled in this chapter the message encoding. So where the message source to encoder to transmitter to transmission medium or the channel, the to receiver to decoder, and lastly to message destination. So so also in a personal letter, it also um contains the following elements, which is the an identifier of the recipient, the salutation or greetings, the message content, closing phrase, and an identifier of the sender. Also the message size, message timing, and message delivery. Also, it tackled the HTTP, which is an application protocol that governs the way web server and web client interact, and also the TCP, which is the transport protocol that manage the individual conversation, and the IP, which is responsible for taking the formatted segment from TCP, encapsulating them into the packet, assigning them the appropriate addresses, and delivering them in the destination host. And also the Ethernet, which is a network access protocol that describe two primary functions, which is the communication over a data link and the physical transmission of a data on the network media. And also tackle the standard organization, which is the open standard and internet standard, and also the electronics and communication standard and organization. This we have the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, which is the IEEE, and the Electronic Industrial Alliance, Telecommunication Industry Association, and others. So I'm going to say the benefits of using the layered modern to describe. So the benefits, it's the other is the fostering competition because products from different vendors can work together, um, preventing technology or capability changes in one layer from affecting other layers above and below, providing common language to describe network function and capabilities. So mostly, the most widely used network models are the OSI and TCP/IP models, and so yeah, and associating the protocols, the set of rules communications with the different layers of these models is useful in determining which devices and networks are applied or at specific point as data passes across LANs and WANs. So data passes down the stack of the OSI model is segmented into pieces and encapsulated with address and other labels. So let's proceed to chapter 4, which is the network access. So this chapter begins with the general function of the physical layer and the standards and protocol that manage the transmission of data across local media. So it also introduce the function of the data link layer and protocol associated with it. So in this chapter, it also tackled the type of communication. So the home router, which has the embedded wireless antenna, Ethernet switch, internet connections, and yeah. So the process that data undergoes from a source node is a destination node to a destination node is the this signal that then the user data is segmented by the transport layer, placed into packets by the network layer, and further encapsulated into frames by the data link layer. So, and the physical layer includes the frames and creates the electrical, optical, and or radio wave signals that represent the bits in each frame. And these signals are then sent on the media one at a time. Also, in this chapter, we tackle the physical layer media. So, there are types of media, which is all of us are familiar with, which is the copper cable, fiber optic cable, wireless, and the wireless. So, the copper cable, it is the signals are patterned of electrical pulses, so it's electrical pulses, and the fiber of the cable, the signals are patterned of lights, so lights. Wireless, the signals are patterned of microwave transmission, so it's microwave transmission, so the transmissions. And also the function, which is the physical layer standards address the three functional area, which is the physical components, encoding, and the signaling. Also, we tackle the bandwidth, which is the bandwidth is a capacity of medium to carry data, and the throughput. So the throughput is it is the measure of the transfer of bits across the network across the media over a given period of time. Um, as I said, it has many factors influence the throughput, which is the amount of traffic, type of traffic, and the latency created by the number of network devices encountered between the source and the destination. Also have the also have the standard for copper media defined for the type of copper cabling used, bandwidth of of the communication, type of connectors used, um, pin out and colors codes of communication to media, and maximum distance of the media. And also tackled in chapter 4 the characteristic of copper cabling, which is the pure digital signal with interference and interference signal, and the what the and the last one is what the computer reads. And also the copper media, which is the three main types of copper media used in networking, which is the unshielded twisted pair or the UTP, and the shielded twisted pair or the STP, and the crucial. And also UTP cable, it is usually terminated with an RJ45 connector. So this connector, it's used for range of physical speculations. So one of which Ethernet, so the TIA or the EIA 568 standards describes the wire color codes to pin assignment or pin out for the Ethernet cables. So in this chapter, we also tackle the main cable types, which is the Ethernet straight through, which is the most common type of networking cable, and the Ethernet crossover. So it is used to interconnect similar devices, and the rollover, so which is a Cisco proprietary cable used to connect a workstation to a router or switch console port. So it also in the fiber optics cable, it is broadly classified into two types, which is the single mode fiber or the SMF, and the multi-mode fiber, which is the MMF. The difference between these two is the SMF consists of very small core and uses expensive laser technology to send single ray of light. And in MMF, it consists of a larger core and uses LED emitters to send light pulses. So especially light from the LED enters the multi-mode fibers at different angles. And also the LAN and the WAN topologies can be viewed in two ways, which is physical topology or the logical topology. So the physical topology, it refers to the connection and identifies how end devices and infrastructure devices such as routers, switches, and wireless access points are interconnected. In logical topology, it refers to the way a network transfers a frame from one node to the next. And also, the ones are commonly interconnected using the physical topologies, which is the point-to-point and hub and spoke and the mesh. Point to point, this is a simplest topology that consists of permanent link between two endpoints. The hub and spoke, it is a one version of star topology in which terminal site interconnects branch site using point to point links. And the mesh, which is this topology provides high availability but requires that every end system be encountered to every other system. So the other physical topologies is just the star, extended star, the bus, and the ring. We also have the half duplex communication and the full duplex communication, which is the half duplex communication. It both devices can transmit and receive on the media but cannot do simultaneously, and the full duplex communication, both devices can transmit and receive on the media at the same time. So among the different implementation of the data links layer protocols, there are different methods of controlling access to the media. So the media access control techniques define if and how the nodes share the media. So the actual media access control method used depends on the topology and media sharing. So LAN and WAN topologies can be physical or logical. It is the logical topology that influence the type of network framing and media access control use. So the are commonly interconnected using the point-to-point, hub and spoke or mesh. Physical topologies in shared media LANs and devices can be interconnected using the star, bus, ring, extended star physical topologies. So let's proceed to chapter 5, which is the Ethernet. So because Ethernet is comprised of standard at this lower layer, it may best be understood in reference of the OSI model. So the OSI model, it separates the data link layer functionalities of addressing, framing, and accessing the media from physical layer standard of the media. So this chapter, it examines the characteristics and operation of Ethernet as it's involved from shared media, contention based data, communication technology to today's high bandwidth and full duplex technology. So, as I said, Ethernet encapsulation. So, Ethernet, it is the most widely used LAN technology today. So, Ethernet support bandwidth of 10 MB and 100 MBs, 1000 MBs or the 1 GB, 10,000 MBs or 10 GB, and 40,000 MBs or 40 GB, and 100,000 MBs or 100 GBs. So the Ethernet MAC layer sublayer, an Ethernet MAC sublayer has two primary responsibilities, which is the data encapsulation and media access control. So the data encapsulation, it provides three primary functions, which is the frame delimiting, addressing, and error detection. So the two primary responsibilities, which is the first one is the data encapsulation, and the second one is the media access control. So switches use one of the following forwarding methods for switching data between network ports. So we have a store and forward switching and cut through switching. So I think for the store and forward, it received the entire frame and computers the CRC, and cut through switch forwards the frame before it's entirely received. So there are two variants of cut-through switching, which is the fast-forward switching and the fragment-free switching. So for the fast-forward switching, it is switching offers the lowest level of latency. For the fragment pre-switching, the switch is stored the first 64 bytes of the frame between forwarding. So there are two methods of buffering ports is the port-based memory buffering and the shared memory buffering. So as I tackle this in chapter 4, in the chapter 5, the two types of duplex setting used for communication on Ethernet duplex, which is the half duplex and the full duplex. So the full duplex, both ends of connection can send and receive simultaneously, and the half duplex, only one end of the connection can send at a time. So I'm gonna introduce the ARP. So um, recall that every device with an IP address on an Ethernet network also has a Ethernet MAC address. When a device send an Ethernet frame, it contains these two addresses. So this two is the destination MAC address. So which is the MAC address of the Ethernet NIC, which will be either the MAC address of final destinations device or the router, and the source MAC address, which is the MAC address of the sender Ethernet um, NIC. Also tackled this the ARP broadcast and the ARP spoofing. So there are two types of Ethernet framing, which is the IEEE 802.3 Ethernet standard at the DIX Ethernet standard, which is now referred to Ethernet 2. So the most significant difference between the two standards is the addition of a star frame delimiter, or the SFD, and the change of type type field to a length field in 802.3. So um the layer 2 addressing provided by Ethernet support unicast, multicast, and broadcast communication. So now let's proceed to chapter 6, which is the network layer. So this chapter focuses on the rule of the network layer. So it examines how it divides network into groups of hosts to manage the flow of data packets within a network. So also covers how communication between network is facilitated. So this communication between network, it is called the routing. So in this chapter, we have the characteristic of the IP protocol, which is the connectionless, no connection with the destination, and the best effort, and the media independent. We also tackle the anatomy of a router, which is a router is a computer, and the router CPU and OS, router memory, and inside a router. So routing tables in titles can be configured manually on each router to provide static routing, or the routers may communicate to route information dynamically between using a routing protocols. So this is a picture. So now let's proceed to chapter 7, which is the IP addressing. So IP addressing. So this chapter, it examines in detail of the structure of addresses and their application to the construction and testing of IP networks and subnetwork. So in this chapter, we tackle the IPv4 network address and the IPv6 network address, which is the IPv4 issues and IPv6, the type of IPv6 addresses, and the IPv6 unicast and multicast address. So, so there are three types of IPv6 addresses, which is the unicast, multicast, and unicast. So in the IPv6 link, local address enables a device to communicate with other IPv6 enabled devices on the same link. So, and only on that link, which is the subnet. So, packet with the source and or destination link local address cannot be router beyond beyond the link from which the package originated. So, IPv6 link address on the FE80 um, um, FE8010 range. So, for the chapter 8, which is the subnetting IP networks, so this chapter it examines in details and the creation and the assignment of IP networks and subnetworks address through the use of subnet mask. So in this chapter, we included the Ethernet LAN device used broadcast. So the Ethernet LAN device used broadcast to locate the other devices and the services. There are also three primary considerations when planning address allocation, which is the prevent duplication of addresses, provide control of access, and monitor security and performance. So, careful planning is required to make best use of the available address space, so size, location, use and access requirements, and all consideration in the address planning process. So after it implemented, an IP network needs to be tested to verify its connectivity and operational performance. So, so let's proceed to chapter 9, which is the transport layer. So, a source computer communicates with receiving computer to decide how to break off data into segments. So, how to make sure none of the segment get lost and how to verify all the segment arrive. So, when thinking about the transport layer, think of a shipping department preparing for a single order of multiple package for delivery. So we tackle the three basic operation reliability of TCP, which is the numbering tracking data segments transmitted to specific host from specific application and the acknowledge received data and transmit in any unacknowledged data after a certain period of time. So the application developers decided the transport layer protocol that best meets the requirements for application. Though it is important to remember that other layers all play in part a part in all the that the other layers all play a part in data networks communication and influence its performance. So let's proceed. So this enabling application data on device to communicate. So for the chapter 10, so it is the application layer. So in this chapter, we will explore the role of the application layer and how the communication services and protocols within the application layer make robust communication across the data network possible. So we tackled about the application presentation and the session layer. So application layer. So the application layer it's closest to the end user. So it is a layer that provides the interface between the application used to communicate and underlying network over which message are transmitted. We also tackle the file sharing services, is the file transfer protocol service message block. The file transfer protocol or the FTP is another commonly used application layer protocol. So the FTP was developed to allow for data transfer between a layer and the server and for between a client and a server. So the application layer enables user to work and play over the internet. So protocols like HTTP, for example, support the delivery of web pages to the end devices. So SMTP, IMAP, and the POP support sending receiving email. So this is the application layer. So we're going to proceed to the last chapter, which is the chapter 11. So in chapter 11, we have considered the services that the data network can provide to the human network. So examine the pictures of each layer of the OSI model and operation TCP. So the next step is to learn how to assemble the element together in the functioning network that can be maintained. So we also encountered in this chapter the device in a small network, which is the small network and the small network topology. And so the device of the small network. So there are three numbers of factor that need to be considered. So it is the cost and the speed and types of ports, interfaces, and the expandability. So um and the other one is, to scale a network, several elements are required, which is the network documentation, device inventory, budget, and traffic analysis. So we also encounter in this chapter the security threats and vulnerabilities, network attacks, migration, and device security. Also, the network troubleshooting, the troubleshooting methodologies, and troubleshooting cables and interfaces. So, Cisco iOS configuration files such as start of configuration or running configuration should be archived. So, these files can be saved to a text file or stored on TFTP server. So, some models of routers also have a USB port and a file can be backed up to USB port. So back up can the USB drive if needed. So these files can be copied to the router or switch from the TFTP server of the or USB. So that's all for the summary of all chapters. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you learn in all the chapter that I tackled on all the summary of every chapter all the summary of all the chapters. So thank you guys for watching.